So I was around when Mount St. Helens went off, and people didn't think that was going to go off at the time. But even if we have a Cascadia earthquake, and even if there's no earthquake damage to anything beyond the valley, Eastern Oregon is going to get impacted because of the number of responders FEMA and the state will bring in and put in the Bend-Redmond area. Excuse me, the amount of personnel that are going to leave the valley and go towards Eastern Oregon as that maybe self-evacuate. Some people have estimated that, about 30 days after the Cascadia earthquake, Bend will become the most populous city in Oregon.
Wow.
So there will be impacts, and Highway 97 will be the major north-south route for all of Oregon. So there will be some major issues that have occurred, major impacts to Eastern Oregon if we have a Cascadia.
Yeah.
Right, and we're going to have someone break down what it's going to look like at their arrival. Let's have you break down what it looks like. I mean, you can have any warning, you can have any, we're rolling now, but yeah.
Gotcha.
You got to have any warning, and how quickly are you going to get people out? How are you going to get them out?
Yeah, okay. For some disasters like you have a hurricane, maybe a tornado, you at least have a weather service and they can track that. For earthquake, the science is not there. We don't know when it's going to occur. So it will occur without warning. It will just happen and we will have to deal with it. And it will be a challenge.
So talking about people evacuating, I mean, is it even possible for anyone to stay here? What will the infrastructure look like here as far as utilities, power, roads?
It will be severely damaged, yes. So sewer lines, power lines, they expect it'll take years probably to get things back up and operating, even the healthcare facilities. The roads, they know that the roads in certain areas will be broken apart or sink due to the earth shaking, and we will have basically the Oregon coast will be in pockets because there will not be connective roads in between them. So, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, looking at this for utilities, I mean, you're talking electricity, 3 to 6 months. There's not really an option for people to stay here.
Yes, it's going to be basically after the Cascadia. It's going to be like camping. We do have some emergency generators and some fuel, but we're going to need a lot of equipment and a lot of supplies brought in very quickly. The pass is going across the Coast Range Mountains. They expect there will be landslides and roads will be impacted that way. That will have to be cleared. And support for the coast will come probably from the Navy out of San Diego, which will be helpful. And then, of course, we'll have it coming from the Eastern Oregon to the valley and then to us. But it's going to take time, and if you do major damage to any sort of municipality, it's going to take a lot of time for us to get back up to speed.
Yeah.
This might be a morbid question, but if the roads are likely to be closed and damaged, how are we going to get everyone to bed?
Yeah, so once the earthquake occurs and we've got people that may be injured or we get tourists and they want to get out of the area, it's going to be a challenge to get them out of the area. If the roads are damaged, people may self-evacuate just by basically hiking out, which may be an option. We do have a plan that we worked on with the state of Oregon, HHS, Department of HHS, and the Newport Airport has been designated as a evacuation site. So they will bring in large aircraft, something like C-130s, land it there, and they will set up temporary tents, which are on the airport property currently, and people would come to that site, be there for about a day or so until they can get put onto an aircraft and then flown out of the area. So that's going to be a very important aspect to get some of our population who may be injured or maybe medically fragile out of the area immediately after an earthquake occurs.
Yeah, gosh. When Newport has big kind of tourist attraction events going on, with the coordination of those events, is there a different kind of protocol they need to follow too with tsunami and earthquake protocol?
We look at basically kind of where the location of those events are at, and one good thing that basically the Oregon Coast has done is they've identified with those blue lines on the roadways where you're at as far as are you below or above the tsunami zone, so that's very helpful. And we've also identified a number of evacuation locations. So for example, in Newport Bay, there is a place called Evacuation Hill, and that's where people would go to if they needed to evacuate. And for some place like the Hatfield Marine Science Center, they have now built a structure on their property which does allow for vertical evacuation. So if they can't get it far enough away out of the tsunami zone, they can go into this building and vertically evacuate to the top of the building.
Wow. Okay.
So, drilling down on her question and talking about what you're talking about, I'm going to pull back the screens about how this started. We were having the Deschutes County Fair, which is one of the biggest events in Deschutes County, and it's 4 days long. And it is also a huge financial thing for the city of Redmond. And there was a tsunami warning during that. And so there was a thought, we have to cancel the fair. So, what is a big event in Newport, and what would happen if there was a significant tsunami warning during that big event? How would you handle that?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, the Oregon Coast, and Newport in particular, has a number of large events that draw on a lot of tourists. The Seafood and Wine is one example of that, and that's basically down on the bayfront, and that is within the tsunami zone. So the city and the county have looked at that and identified that there's at least 2 different evacuation points that those people could go to. One is the Hatfield Marine Science Center, which is about a 10-minute walk from that, and the other is a place called Evacuation Hill, which is very close by as well, but that's more about a 15-minute walk. So we've looked at some of the bigger events that have occurred and tried to identify what we would do. But yeah, it's still difficult.
One of the things we discussed at the other place was it's a little bit more in the culture of people who live on the coast, because even before there were major concerns about large seismic events and, I mean, tsunamis, which you're still used to powerful storms coming in for the things like that. It's just part of the culture. Has that helped disaster preparedness, that people say, you know, hey, we live in an environment that doesn't care where we live, whether we live or die, you know? Is that part of the culture here?
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, for the Oregon coast, we do get winter storms that can be very strong, as strong as hurricane force winds. So the population is used to that. We have also had things like ice storms. That's a little more challenging because some people do have medical needs. Maybe they have medical devices, maybe they need medicine that's refrigerated, maybe they have kids and they need to get formula for them. But as far as the culture, it's still an effort to get people to make sure that they're being prepared. For most of the Oregon, the Office of Emergency Management recommends basically a 2-week ready, have everything you might need potentially at your house to be surviving for 2 weeks. For the Oregon coast, they recommend 4 weeks.
Okay. And yesterday we were talking with someone who, with the Oregon Coastal Management Program, and we were talking about some of the struggles or hurdles that they're facing. The main thing was funding, and grants are harder to get now and that sort of thing. And looking at the Oregon Resilience Plan from, a dozen years ago, how frequently are these types of plans? Is there a certain schedule, I guess, that they're reviewed and updated?
Gotcha.
Or is it just kind of dependent on funding and availability?
Gotcha. Yeah, there's a number of plans that counties have their own plans, the state of Oregon has their own plans, and those plans are reviewed on a certain cycle and updated. It depends on what that plan is. The shutdown, especially with the federal government recently, grants are a little bit challenging to get now. I was just this morning trying to pull some information off of the website for the Census Bureau, and their site is down because of the shutdown. So we do the best we can with the resources we have. We think we're doing pretty good, but we can always do better.